Welcome to Big Easy Life, and to this segment dedicated to the cultures of the Crescent City. So stick around as we discuss our second ruling culture, Spain. Now, the Spanish took possession of the region in 1763, on paper. Louis XV needed to pay off a war debt to his cousin, King Charles III, so here we are. Their impact on the region cannot be understated. You would think that after 45 years of French rule, things would be pretty static, and in some senses you'd be right. There were a lot of folks that didn't take to the Spanish occupation, but time and events can do strange things. In my mind, the cultural turning point to look back on came in 1788. That's the year that on Good Friday at about 1:30 p.m. a fire broke out in the home of the Army Treasurer Don Vicente Jose Nunez at 619 Charter Street. Now, there are various stories on how exactly the fire erupted and how Don Nunez reacted, but we'll save that story for another show. The part to look at is that 856 of the 1,100 structures in New Orleans burned to the ground. This all but wiped clean the French architectural legacy that was in the French Quarter. The rebuilding efforts were a wholly Spanish affair, and with it a new class of Creoles arose. You now had former French subjects indebted to the Spanish for the rebuilding efforts. This, along with many Spanish dons that were very enamored with the French Creole ladies, and many marriages ensued, graying those lines that had previously divided so many. Another major boost to the Spanish influence was the arrival of the Isleños people from the Canary Islands. This took place in the late 1700s. They originally settled in 4 communities which included Galvez Town, Valenzuela, Barataria, and San Bernardo. Of those settlements, San Bernardo would eventually go on to become St. Bernard Parish, and those same Isleños would start out as farmers, and hunters would slowly corner the seafood trade in for New Orleans from the fishing villages that they established. So with all this said, where do you find this Spanish culture in New Orleans today? Well, let's start with the descendants of those folks from the Canary Islands. They had founded the Los Isleños Heritage and Cultural Society in St. Bernard Parish. You can find a link to them in the notes below. There you can see over 40 unique artifacts of those first immigrants and see how they lived their lives. Now, your next museum stop should be the Cabildo and the Presbytery. Both buildings were built by the Spanish after the 1788 and 1794 fire and have been key locations in both Spanish and American history here in New Orleans. They are now both part of the Louisiana State Museum system. As we said earlier, just look at the buildings in the quarter, the bricking style, the wrought iron works, and the amazing courtyards. Next up, I would point you to Spanish Plaza, the pedestrian plaza located along the Mississippi River. This was a gift presented from Spain in 1976 to commemorate the history shared between the Spanish people and New Orleans. Okay, I know what you really want. Food. Where can you find Spanish culture in the food in New Orleans? In my research, I see where the Spanish brought their love of spice with them that was lacking in some of the French forms, and it was different in the African Caribbean forms. They also brought the heavy use of rice in their dishes, which was to be a major crop here in Louisiana. I know you're watching this and you're saying, but where should we eat? Well, there are many amazing places with heavy Spanish influence, as well as a growing Hispanic food scene, but I'll give you my top 3 recommendations for traditional Spanish. Cristero Restaurant and Bar. This is a coastal Spanish restaurant and it's located at 4938 Prytania, Uptown. They highlight local produce and Gulf seafood. Amazing. Barcelona. Located also uptown in the Riverbend area at 720 Dublin Street. Their food is essentially a taste of Spain with a New Orleans accent, is how they call it. Finally, my favorite on this list is Lola's. This is truly authentic Spanish food with a twist. They are in mid-city areas serving traditional Spanish dishes that are heavily influenced by the local Creole cuisine over the decades. I hope this has given you a bit of an insight into the Spanish culture of the Big Easy. If you have any questions, please comment below. If you enjoyed, please give us a like and subscribe to the channel to get the latest videos from us. We won't disappoint. And we hope to see you soon to share more of our Big Easy life.